She got tired of me.
Yeah.
Kicked me out of the house. So
that's so sad.
It is sad. It's also not very good hospitality, which is a part of our theme here this morning. Our theme for this morning is The Dishes Can Wait, and we're going to be hearing the story of Mary and Martha a little bit later. And so, Taylor, that actually reminded me of something else, if you can believe it. As we're thinking about this story of Mary and Martha and hospitality, it reminded me of the definition of hospitality. You know what that is? Hospitality is making your guests feel at home even when you wish that they were.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. Well, oh, man. These are some good jokes to start us off here.
Tough
good
crowd.
Icebreakers. It is a tough crowd, I will say that. Welcome everybody who's found us. We are going to have just a little bit of music here as prelude, and then we'll be back to start the service here in just a couple of minutes. So good morning and welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. For prelude, we're going to sing a song called Holy, 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 God with Us, written by Matt Maher and some other contemporary artists. So while you're getting set up, while you're chilling out, just waiting for us to start the service, we'll do this together. You probably know the Holy, Holy part, but the chorus might be a little new for you. Rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. From the cradle to the cross, God with us, God with us. For this broken world you love, God with us, God with us. You gave up your only Son, God with us, God with us. So that all the world will know our God with us. Shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, God in three persons, blessed Trinity. From the cradle to the cross, God with us, God with us. For this broken world you love, God with us, God with us. You gave up your only Son, God with us, God with us. So that all the world will know our God with us. Casting down their golden crowns around the glassy sea. Cherubim and seraphim go falling down before thee. Which word and art evermore shall be. From the cradle to the cross, God with us, God with us. For this broken world you love, God with us, God with us. You gave up your only Son, God with us, God with us, so that all the world will know our God with us, so that all the world will know our God with us. So that all the world will know our God with us.
Thank you, Taylor. And good morning again, and welcome. I'm Pastor Nathan Mugas, and welcome to Elk River Lutheran Church online. Here we are, another Sunday morning. Glad to have you here with us. That you have found us here this morning is wonderful. We're gathered here around the table and glad to be at your tables as well. And so as we get started here, our theme for this morning is The Dishes Can Wait. And we're going to be hearing the story of Mary and Martha. We're continuing to hear these stories of Jesus eating with people all throughout the Gospels. He does this, and there's some great learnings, I think, from these stories, and that'll be the case here this morning as well. And so glad that you are here with us online. This is a kind of time of year where actually our snowbirds are often coming home. And one thing I know, I want to encourage you all to check in on Facebook or in the chat feature there in Zoom and say good morning to everyone. Tell us who you are, where you're at, who you're watching with. That would be a great way to kind of check in. And, you know, I mentioned our snowbirds because a lot of our snowbirds who've been south for the winter, I've been hearing that a number of them have come back home in the last week. And so welcome home. This isn't probably the welcome you were hoping for. And for us, it's certainly bittersweet because one of my favorite times of the year is when folks start coming back, and we can't really give you a hug or a handshake and welcome you home right now, but we are glad that many of you have made it safely back to Minnesota. You'll also notice we look a little different here in our setup has changed a little bit, and we have a longer table. We're spread out a little more, but we are still live. And some of you might kind of wonder, now with the stay-at-home order, how does that work? We have that going on in Minnesota. Last Wednesday, when we heard that the governor had come out with the stay-at-home order, we actually recorded a service here for this morning, that Wednesday night, thinking that we wouldn't be able to gather anymore. But then once we actually got the order and read it, there is actually an exception for pastors and church staff who are doing online worship and broadcasting and recording. And so we knew we could officially and legally be here. But then we had the conversation as a staff, is this something we're all comfortable with still doing, that we want to continue doing? And we agreed we did. We wanted to be here. And so we had that conversation then with the council as well. And they said, absolutely, as long as you are all feeling comfortable and up for doing it, we would love to have you do that. So that's why we're all here. We have a little bit longer table to give ourselves a little bit better social distance here on camera as well. But the other thing you should know is as we plan these services, it is very different than our normal time. We are all working from home now. All the planning for these times together happens ahead of time online through Zoom calls and email and shared Google Docs. And so we are pretty actually together a very small amount of time, basically just the amount you see us all together. And so we are grateful to be able to still be doing this, but in a way that is safe and really respecting what's going on. This time is really important. We do want to help minimize the spread of this virus, and we're doing what we can too. And so glad that you are all with us here as we gather this morning. As we gather, I introduced myself, Pastor Nathan, the pastor at Elk River Lutheran, but I want others to introduce themselves as well.
I'm Lisa Sampson. I'm the Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministry.
Jeremy Hallquist, Minister of Congregational Care and Discipleship.
And I'm Taylor Quinn, the Director of Music and Worship.
Yeah, and so this Sunday morning, we have a couple of things that are a little different in case you haven't known or heard. One is that we do have a bulletin that has been put together. You can find it on our website through our Staying Connected page, where there's a online worship resource button that you can find. It's a PDF, and it has the words to the songs as well as an order of service and the questions that we'll be discussing that we invite you to ponder or discuss. And so you can find that online through our website. Also, a different thing, last week we did a kind of a children's sermon to start off the service. this week we're actually on the tail end going to be doing Lift Family Sunday School. And so Lisa had emailed our parents and families who are in Lift, encouraging them to have some supplies for a little project and stuff. And so that'll be happening after. Lisa, you want to say a little bit about what we're doing for Lift?
Sure. We're going to be looking at the story that we're talking about today, which is Mary and Martha. And we're comparing that to a story about a couple of brothers that you're probably familiar with in the story. And then we're going to make we're going to do an activity that will give kids something to do this week, something different to do. So stay and join us.
Yeah, so right after the worship service, we'll roll right into Lift, and it is Family Sunday School, so the whole church family is invited to stay, not only if you have kids there, but everyone's welcome. So we're hoping that some of you will stick around for that. It'll be fun. So with that, we'll begin with another song, I think, and then we'll enter into our time of worship here with this opening song.
Yeah, yep. We'll open worship with In the Garden. It's not in our hymnal, the Lutheran hymnal, but it's someplace. So
it's in the PDF.
Well, it's in the PDF. I keep forgetting that we have a PDF. So just follow along in the PDF and sing it to your heart's content.
Joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks and the sound of his voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing. And he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with him, though the night around me be falling, but he bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
We'll continue now with our scripture reading, Psalm 27. So Lisa, you want to read it?
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they shall stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I asked of the Lord, that I will seek after, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in the shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Here ends the reading.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, one word that shows up in this reading a couple of times is fear, including right from the first verse. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? And I think it's safe to assume that the person who wrote this psalm is really asking the question rhetorically, because I think we can assume that he or she, this person, actually had something in their life that was definitely causing them fear. They're not just thinking, oh, what if I was afraid of something? Chances are there was something really front and center that was causing them fear. And yet what I love about this psalm is that this person then, they tie that fear to the promise that God is with us, and to the promise that even in the midst of fear, no matter how much fear we are feeling, God is our light and our salvation. That those are not separate experiences, but they're one and the same. And so, in this time where there is some fear in our lives, I'm wondering what is fear looking like for you all? Where are you experiencing fear? And then the other question then is, how can we tie our fears to the promise that God is our light and our salvation, even here and now, even with fear? So first, the fears. What is fear looking like?
I'm okay right now. I'm not too fearful. I was fearful in the beginning. I wasn't feeling well, and I was scared that I had the COVID. But I'm feeling better now. So I'm not really afraid for myself, but I think fear for others. I think we just found out this weekend that one of our friends was exposed to someone who was exposed to COVID. And so there's just fear of if they get it. And I think with this the new kind of stories that are coming out of especially this young guy that got COVID, in his description of it's a little bit more fearful for getting it, because we think it's going to be a regular virus, but it may not be for most people. That's been kind of a huge fear of mine, is for those who do get it, that it's going to be more suffering.
I think my fear, of course, with my daughter and her husband in New York City still, I just can't watch the news. I start to watch the news and I have to shut it off, because I don't want to live in that fear.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm more fearful today than I was just last week, in that after the governor talked on Wednesday, talking about when this peak is going to be, how long this is actually going to go. And the fact that right now we're merely inconvenienced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're all healthy. And I know some people aren't, but really nobody I know is sick with this yet. And that's going to change. And I'm afraid of that, because, it's the unknown.
I feel like that governor's press conference on Wednesday was kind of a reality check.
Yeah.
I mean, it was good. I appreciated the facts. The way he laid it out was in some ways all too clear, and it just made it very real. Like the idea of turning auditoriums and hotels into hospitals. I mean, this is just going to a level and experience that is new to everyone. I mean, like unlike anything we've seen. Like this isn't just some common cold or flu. This is big. This is serious. And that's scary.
Yeah, I've been struggling with how do you talk to your kids about it? I mean, something is obviously different in our house if we're cooped up at home, and yet not wanting to scare them in the process. How do you have that balance of being aware? Kids don't wash their hands, so we're doing that extra at this point. And yet still trying to say, we have a hope in this, that it will turn out okay. How do we navigate that as parents?
Yeah.
So,
well, because that's the kind of the core of the question here is, how are we able to tie our fears to that hope, to tie our fears to the promise that God is with us, that God is our light and our salvation, even when we're afraid. The psalmist believed it enough to write it down and share it with the world. How can we hold on to that hope and truth?
I think we, just by acknowledging that there is fear and that it's okay to be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's written here in Scripture and in many other places in the Bible. And just knowing that we're fearful doesn't make us less faithful.
Right.
And that's okay.
Those feelings can coexist, absolutely. That faith and fear are not opposites, but that they can go hand in hand.
And I love the psalmist asked the question, the one thing I asked of the Lord. I mean, to be able to ask God, why is this going on? To question and to wrestle with that. And yet there's an assurance in the psalm of what God will do, even despite my questions and my fears and my anxieties, and to lean into that. And how do we lean into God in those moments?
And how does it look? When I read these scriptures, I think, okay, so I've got this fear, but I also have this promise that I'm going to be taken care of. How does that look in our regular lives? And, I was just thinking about that. I think reading the Psalm reminds me that to keep my eyes open for those opportunities that our salvation, that our setting a shelter on top of a high rock, what are those moments? To keep my eyes open for that.
It's messy, but it's a promise.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be pretty.
And even that's uncertain, but we have a promise to hold on to,
Yeah, God shows up, and so, we got the time. Let's keep an eye out and see how God might be showing up in the midst of this. Our gospel story is a story of God showing up as Jesus shows up to have dinner with some people. And so this, gospel comes from Gospel of it's Luke, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Luke 10. And sometimes we experience that showing up in different ways. Different people do, and that's what we see in this story. Jeremy, you want to read this story for us?
Yeah. So if you have your Bibles at home, it's Luke 10:38-42. That's the story of Mary and Martha. Now, as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her."
Yeah. So our theme for this morning is the dishes can wait. To go along with this story, in some ways, that's what Jesus is saying to Martha. And so, to start us off here, I'm curious. You all who are around this table, are you more in the category of, "Oh, the dishes can wait. I'm not too worried about the housework. Those things can wait"? Or are you the neat Nick who wants to get dishes done right away, always keep a tidy house, and always be neat and organized? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Oh, the dishes can wait.
They're not going anywhere, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I tend to, when I cook, I like to kind of just enjoy my meal, and so all the dishes, sometimes even the ingredients, stay out a little bit longer than maybe other people would do. But I tend to get to them maybe the next morning or a couple days after that.
Sure.
Kind of.
When my kids were growing up, their mantra, and they still do it now, rinse and stack, because
Sure.
I didn't always get to them right away because I was busy with them. And so rinse and stack them neatly, nicely. Now, as they're all adults, I pretty much clean them up after.
Sure.
So I don't let them sit.
That's good.
Yeah.
But at least they're organized.
They're organized.
Yeah.
I would say this is one of those places where I'm grateful that I married my opposite, because I am totally the one, forget the dishes, you can even leave them on the table. Like, that's totally fine.
Sure.
My wife, on the other hand, is the person who, the moment dinner is done, they're washed, rinsed, put in the dishwasher. Like, she is good to go right at that moment. And so there's rarely a day that dishes are left on the counter or in the sink.
Sure.
So I'm blessed in that category.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm similarly blessed. I'm in, I think, year 11 of my training program to try to have a neater house. And I think Annie, my wife, would say some days I'm doing better than others. Some days I'm being held back and moving back grades. But for the most part, I have gotten a lot better at it, thanks to her, and I think that's good. But I will say this time has kind of turned us upside down, because you can always wait. We're going to be going tomorrow, nowhere, I mean, the dishes really can wait because no one's going anywhere. And we have kind of had a hard time adjusting to the new schedule and routine. The kids are home all the time. We're both working from home. And so we have probably more dishes waiting than either of us are really comfortable with. And that's tough. This is a different kind of life now. The other thing it made me think of, though, this idea of dishes can wait was, not too long ago after Christmas, I bought 2 big 16-pound turkeys. And I was so excited to have a turkey party and have friends over and have a big dinner. And so we did it once. We had one turkey party, and it was fun. It was good. But then now it came time to this, isolation time where we're at home. I still got this big 16-pound turkey in the freezer. And so finally I was like, I gotta get this out of here. Like, we can't wait until we can have a turkey party. So this week I cooked the 16-pound turkey. I'm like, kids, you gotta eat 4 pounds of turkey each, because we got a lot of bird here. And so we cooked this whole Thanksgiving meal with stuffing and mashed potatoes and gravy.
We have a big table here.
All the fixings. I know, I should have brought it here. No, we don't want to cross-contaminate. But anyway, and so we ate, and of course it made a huge colossal mess. There was lots of dishes to do. But then instead of doing the dishes right away, we did let them wait. We actually went for a drive, and we drove by Jeremy's house and waved to him and his family. And it was okay letting the dishes wait. And they all got done. And all of these things we have left to do around home, they will get done. But a part of the message here in this story today is that sometimes there's things more important than the dishes. And that's part of what led us that theme, the dishes can wait. Because in this story, if you remember, Martha is busy. She is the one fussing around the kitchen. There's lots of work to do because they're hosting Jesus and the disciples. There's plenty of work to do. And so you folks who are tidy and are good hosts, you get it, right? I mean, Martha is busy getting the meal ready, cleaning, all of that work. And the worst thing in the world happens, that her lazy, good-for-nothing sister, who is like some of us around this table, would be happy to just not be helping with that. And so finally, Mary, is just sitting around doing nothing for long enough that Martha loses it, and she goes to Jesus to tell on her. She says, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." And Jesus says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her." Now, us dish waiter folks, we are like, oh, sweet Jesus, this is good stuff, right? He's speaking our language. This is the gospel, everybody. But the truth of the matter is, I think in this story, I really fully believe that Jesus really loves and appreciates what Mary is doing, or what Martha is doing too, I should say. What Martha is doing is important. I mean, Jesus wants to eat the meal later on. I don't think he's knocking her for the fact that she's doing the work that needs to be done. I think the problem kind of arises with Martha, a problem that arises with a lot of us, is that sometimes we let our busyness get in the way of our relationships. Sometimes we let all of these to-do lists and the tasks at hand get in the way of what's most important. And relationships are those things that are often most important and that we should be tending to. And so, in this time of isolation, it leads me to wonder and actually to ask then, in this time of isolation, what has tending to those relationships look like? Has it changed how you tend to relationships? Are you in more communication with people or less? And of course, then how has that communication changed? Because that is certainly a little different. So what is communication and tending to relationships looking like for you?
Yeah, the communication for me, the medium has changed. I don't know about my timeline so much. I tend to kind of go in waves. I'm not always with people or wanting to be with friends or family, but so the timeline is similar, but it's about how I'm reaching out to people. I love to have people over in my house. I love to host and to be in proximity to people, that's a sense of love for me. And this has been weird for me because I don't even always like talking on the phone, but I've had to resort to resigning myself to using the phone or texting or Zoom to really connect with people and to feel connected to people. It's kind of been an eye-opener because it tells me that I don't have to have people over all the time if I want to kind of see how they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spend a lot more time calling and texting. So as soon as I get in the car, it's usually hit send on the phone and, reach out to someone. I am finding that I'm reaching out to people that I have kind of fallen away from or that I haven't reached out to in a while, just because it's sort of, they pop in your head. And so I found when that happens, just reach out and call people.
Yeah.
So that seems to be a new norm for me, and it's just a little bit different. So.
I'm having fun connecting with friends on Zoom. Of course, it's neat. But the relationship that hasn't been tended to is with my mom. She's in a nursing home up in Duluth, and unfortunately, I haven't seen her for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and I'm usually seeing her 2 or 3 times a month. And she's on the 3rd floor, so it's not like I can just put a sign in her window or wave at her. She's up there. And so I haven't even attempted to go up there, but we got to FaceTime last week, so that was nice. And she could hear me. She's also deaf, and not deaf, but she can't hear well enough to talk on the phone. So that's been a little frustrating.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some grieving of in-person relationships, like, and yes, I mean, just think about it. This happened 20 years ago. I mean, there are so many more ways of connecting, including for church. I mean, we couldn't have been live streaming even 10 years ago. And yet here we're able to do this, and we're able to have video calls and text, and, even just phones are a great resource, but it's not the same. And I think it's okay to acknowledge and grieve that this isn't the same. But the good news is that this isn't forever either. It's every time our kids ask, is the sickness gone yet? It just breaks my heart a little bit. I say, no, it's not, but it will be. It'll be gone soon. Now, what does soon mean? I don't know. They don't know. I don't know. And we don't know. But we'll get through this. We'll get back to our new normal, whatever that looks like.
I just wanted to add real quick. After Wednesday, dinner church on Wednesday, I Zoomed home, not really Zoomed, but drove home and got on Zoom. And met with the middle school and high schoolers.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. And so I had all these faces on my computer, and there was joy in everybody seeing each other. And so for those of you that didn't get to chime in, and please do on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8. And this week, you don't have to prepare for anything. We watched a movie last week before we met, but this week we're going to have a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Scavenger hunt, to spread the word.
Around the house, right?
Around the house, yeah. We're not going to meet and do the thing like we did last time, but in your own homes. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's great. One of the ways, one of the things I've been thinking about with this story too, and just busyness, is one of the ways I had heard talked about busyness is that busyness is a pandemic in our country. Now, of course, that has a different meaning now that we're experiencing a real pandemic, but busyness has been an issue that we deal with on a daily basis, I think. And it is kind of messed up, I think. The way we look at busyness is how we measure our self-worth. Like, if we're busy, then we're doing well. If we're not busy, well, then, you're lazy and you're just not accomplishing anything. You're not worth a darn, And this time of intentional slowing down, where a lot of the things we would be busy with, we're not allowed to be busy with anymore. And so all those little stops on the way home from work or whatever the thing, like, we've just had to slow down. And it's made me wonder if it'll continue, right? Like, so the question we had here is, has this time made you rethink your busyness? And do you think this whole experience of a forced slowdown, will that change the way we all think about busyness going forward?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's the hope. I found that I get so busy, my heart needs time to catch up with my body. And now, in the time where my body isn't going so much, I get to kind of experience more feelings, like just kind of a presence in myself. When you started reading the text, I thought of we're human beings, not human doings. You know, just that idea that that it's good for us to stop, you know, in the midst of our busyness. Yeah.
I don't think my life hasn't changed a whole lot. Working from home is different. I don't like it as well, but my schoolwork is still there, and most of my classes were online anyway. And so for me, hearing about all these people having all this downtime, I'm a little envious. And so I'm trying to dictate my time where I do have some downtime and care for myself. And doing some of that stuff, attending, you know, I sorted through jewelry yesterday. Now that was my big, you know,
Sure.
I have a lot of jewelry that I just said, okay, I haven't worn this in 10 years. Out.
Did you Marie Kondo it?
Kind of, yeah. a little bit, you know, I did. I kind of went, does this bring, and then there's a few pieces that still bring me joy I'll never wear again.
Yeah.
They're in a baggie in the back of it. Anyway, so.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, you know, I'm a person who's constantly on the move as of late between work and home and kids. And, you know, I just feel like I'm constantly doing those things. And so being sort of forced into a slowdown for me was a little bit challenging. I even reflected on it this week in that devotion. Last week, I tore apart a floor, changed some lights, did a bunch of stuff, just because I needed to do things. This week has felt a little bit more, all right, I don't need to be so chaotic all the time. And my hope is that sticks kind of moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, how do we intentionally give space for the right things, not necessarily all of the things.
Yeah.
And how do we think about that? So.
Yeah, right. Because I think, you know, it's easy to allow ourselves to just keep being busy. You know, in some ways I've kind of felt that. Now Annie and I are both working from home and doing full-time daycare and now homeschooling, you know, and so in a sense it's like, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people who are working from home right now are experiencing this on different levels. Like, yeah, it's nice working from home, but that also means then you're just always in the office too, you know, and then, you know, kids add another dimension and layer of demands onto life. And it's just, it's a different kind of busy. And in some ways it's like, it takes more intentionality to find that downtime. And and it's something that I think we at our house are still trying to figure out. And I think will be for a while. And I'm guessing that's true for a lot of people trying to figure out this new normal. What does it look like? It'll take some doing.
It has been nice not living in the rush of things though.
Yeah.
Like when we were preparing for this, you had brought up that it feels good to do a project without feeling like you're hurried.
Right.
You know, like time is against us. And that has been pretty life-giving. You know, you had mentioned it for me as well, that it's been nice to kind of be productive, but not feel like you have to hurry and kind of be victim to the urgency of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a time to, prioritize and to prioritize rest and, you know, downtime as well as connections. You know, I think that's a big takeaway from this story for me is that, the work that Martha was doing still needed to get done, but Jesus was right there. Like, he's not going to be with them forever. And so it was important to take time to appreciate that relationship too. And in whatever ways, whatever relationships we're each talking about, like, we need to be tending to them. So,
and maybe the silver lining in what's happening today is that tending to relationships, that we can focus on those and not be so busy.
Yeah. I mean, I will never have spent this much time with my kids and probably never will again. I mean, that's a reality of it. So there's challenge in that, but there's real blessing in that too. And, you know, Well, these questions are in the PDF bulletin, and so we'd invite you to have a conversation about these questions too, just as we have as well. So, but for now, Taylor, why don't you play us our hymn of the day here?
Absolutely. This song is called "The Lord Is My Salvation," and it's written by Kristen and Keith Getty, and it comes from the text, the Psalm text, the Psalm 27 text, and so. You most likely won't know it unless you're really fans of the Gettys. but I'll sing the chorus, and then we'll kind of follow the PDF. We won't do the bridge though today. So here's the chorus.
Who is like the Lord our God, strong to save, faithful in love? My debt is paid and the victory won. The Lord is my salvation. Here's verse 1. The grace of God has reached for me and pulled me from the raging seas, and I am safe on this solid ground. The Lord is my salvation. Verse 2. I will not fear when darkness falls. His strength will help me scale these walls. I see the dawn of the rising sun. The Lord is my salvation. Here's that chorus. Who is like the Lord our God, strong to save, faithful in love? My debt is paid and the victory won. The Lord is my salvation. Here's verse 3. My hope is hidden in the Lord. He flowers each promise of His word. When winter fades, I know spring will come. The Lord is my salvation. Verse 4. In times of waiting, times of need, when I know lost, when I am weak, I know His grace will renew these days. The Lord is my salvation. Who is like the Lord our God, strong to save, faithful in love? My debt is paid and the victory won. The Lord is my salvation. And when I reach the final day, He will not leave me in the grave, but I will rise and call me home. The Lord is my salvation. Who is like the Lord our God, strong to save, faithful in love? My debt is paid and the victory won. The Lord is my salvation. The Lord is my salvation. The Lord is my salvation.
Well, hi, everybody. On Facebook, you will know that we lost the feed. Facebook dropped the feed, and so we started up a new one. So welcome back. You all found us again. That's great. And so we are back here, and a few more folks will keep joining here, I'm sure, as we go along. But wanted to just invite you into a time of prayer now. So as people come back on, we'll be in this time of prayer where Taylor will play another song for us. And during this time of prayer, we invite you to, pray, to yourselves in your hearts, or share if you have prayer concerns or people or folks you'd like to pray for, situations that you'd be willing and want to share in the chat or the comment section. We invite you to go ahead and do that here during this prayer time as well. And so, Taylor, you want to play a song? And during this, we invite you to pray and to lift up those prayers to God.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts fail, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. The swift close, ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. O thou who changest not, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. But thy grace can foil the tempter's power. Who like thyself my guide and stay can be? Through cloud and sunshine, oh, abide with me. Hold thou thy cross before my closing eyes. Shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. And morning breaks and earth's faint shadows flee. In life, in death, O Lord, abide with me.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we entrust to your care the prayers of your people. We pray that you would calm our fears and turn those fears to hope. Lord, in the midst of uncertain times, we pray for everyone who works and is essential in these days that may experience the challenges of working and the uncertainty of what that means. We pray for all of our congregational needs, those that are sick and those that have lost loved ones. Our Facebook feed mentions a few today. We pray that you would watch over them to keep them safe, to surround them with your love and your care. And in your tender mercies, we entrust all of this to you. Lord, remember us in your kingdom and teach us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
I'm so thankful that you all found us once again, and thank you for hanging with us during technical difficulties and such. At this time, we're going to, let's see, continue with the offering, but as has been the challenge the last few weeks, it's hard to pass this around. But I will say just a big thank you to all of you who continue to support Elk River Lutheran financially and have found those online ways to give. That financial support is really helping this church during this time as we not only try to figure out how to just survive during this time, but how do we continue to live out our mission? How do we expand the ways that we are able to live out our mission together in this time, which is an important time. So thank you so much. And one big specific thank you for generosity as well is with the Beer and Hymns event and the outpouring of support for CARE. This week, Taylor hosted an online Beer and Hymns event, and we encourage people to donate to CARE. And our ERLC endowment, our Mission Endowment Fund, they were willing and able to match those gifts up to $1,000. And so this week, what came in was over $1,800 from you all for CARE. That plus the $1,000 match means that this week already they've received it. CARE has received over $2,800 from Elk River Lutheran Church. So thank you. Yes. I'm sure you're all clapping at home and cheering too. It is truly remarkable. Thank you for responding to this need, which is very real and large in our community. The work that CARE is doing right now is more important than ever. And so thank you for seeing that need and supporting it. $2,800 will go a long way toward helping a lot of people. So thank you. Just so you know, you are able to continue to give to CARE as well as to Elk River Lutheran Church through our regular offering ways, which right now are on the website. Through the website, you can give online through a variety of different ways that are laid out there. You can also mail in checks, or if you are out on your weekly grocery run, you can actually drop a check in our mailbox outside the front door. We have a locked mailbox, and those will be received there as well. And so truly, really thank you for your support and love in all the different ways that has been shown here these last few weeks especially. We wish we could all be back together, and we will again one day, and we'll look forward to that day. And so until that day, and as we gather here, I want you to receive this blessing before we hear our sending song. As we go, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine on you with grace and mercy. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful take and shield you. You will find a solace there. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer.
Well, thank you, Taylor, Jeremy, and Lisa, and thank you all for joining us here this morning. A couple of announcements as we go. Next week is Palm Sunday, next Sunday, and so this will be a Palm Sunday like no Palm Sunday we've celebrated before, certainly. And so a few things about that. One is we have ordered palm branches that were ordered long before this whole thing, and so there's a chance, we encourage you to watch your email this week. There's a chance that they may arrive still, maybe not, we don't know for sure. But if they do, I think we'll set them outside in a bucket. And if you want to drive by and grab a palm branch, you're welcome to. Or at home, you can make your own palm branches to have for our worship service to have to wave next week would be great. And so that's next Sunday is Palm Sunday. The other thing I wanted to mention is Taylor is doing part 2 of Beer and Hymns this Monday night.
Beer and Hymns continued.
He didn't get through the whole playlist. And so Beer and Hymns continued is Monday night at 6:30, right?
Yep.
6:30 we'll be going live here, and you can enjoy some of these great hymns that were requested and you didn't get to last time. So that'll be great. Finally, then the other thing that's happening here yet is Lift. And so we're going to continue with Lift here now. And so I invite everyone to stay for that and to get your craft supplies, get your box and your decorations to get ready to decorate a choice box. So thank you everybody for being here. Hope you'll stick with us for Lift. You're going to play us a little reprise?
Absolutely.
While we get our stuff ready?
Get the sanitizer, please.
Thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome everybody for Lift. Boy, I miss you kids. It's really, I mean, I wish that these three would start behaving, a little bit more rambunctiously so it feels like we're at your usual place. But what we're going to talk about today.
Very mature.
I know you could pull it off if you really tried. So what we talked about, kids, and families, if you weren't here for the whole service, is we talked about the story about Mary and Martha. And they're sisters, and Jesus was coming to their house for dinner, and they were excited to have him there. Martha was very, very busy getting dinner ready and cleaning up and making it a very special time for him. That was important to her. Mary chose to sit at Jesus's feet, and he was teaching her and he was talking to her, and they were building relationships. And so all of a sudden, Mary looked over at Martha and was a little bit mad that she wasn't helping with the dishes and wasn't helping getting food prepared. And she said, Jesus, can you make her help me? This is ridiculous. And Jesus said that Mary was choosing to listen to him, and that was a good thing. But by the same token, Pastor Nathan pointed out that Martha's choice was okay too, because somebody needed to get the dishes done and the food prepared so they could have a meal later. And so Martha then joined them and listened to Jesus too, and they had a great conversation. In our Lift story today, we're going to learn about two brothers who also made some very different choices. So if you have a Spark Story Bible at home, you can turn to page 378. If you don't have one, Pastor Nathan is going to hold up the book while I read the story for us today. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to get your storybook out or get ready. All right, the prodigal son. Jesus spent time with all sorts of people, even people who had done bad things. This made some people mad. Why is Jesus always around people who do bad things? They grumbled. Jesus heard them, so he told them this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son, who was a bit wild and crazy, came to his father and said, "Dad, I want to get away from here. I want my money." This made the father sad, but he split his money and gave his son the part that was his. The younger son packed his bags and headed away from home. The son traveled to a faraway country and spent all his money on fancy parties and food. Soon he had no more money and no place to stay. Lucky for him, he found a man who let him sleep in the barn of his son, if the son would feed the pigs. "Oh, what am I thinking?" he said to himself as he fed the pigs. "The men who work for my father have more than enough to eat, and here I am starving to death. I'll go home and say to my father, 'Dad, I made a big mistake. I'm not good enough to be your son. But would you let me work for you?' So he went home. While he was still far away from his house, his father saw him. His father ran and threw his arms around him. The father put a ring on his son's finger and shoes on his feet and ordered for a party to be thrown for him. The older son saw his father's servants preparing for the party and asked, 'What's going on?' 'Your brother is home,' said the servant, 'and your father is having a party.' This made the older brother angry at his father. 'I've always done what's right,' he said to his father. 'I've worked hard for you, but you never gave me a party. Now my brother came home after he wasted your money. Why are you throwing him a party?' 'My son, you have always been with me, but your brother left and now has come back.' Then the people understood. Jesus had spent time with those people even though they had done bad things. They decided to change their lives and like God wanted. This made Jesus happy. And I think we lost our Facebook feed again.
So 17 on Zoom.
Okay, so Zoom, hang in there. We're still with you. Just give us 1 second to see if we can get Facebook people up and running again. So the 2 boys, the 2 sons made very different choices, didn't they? Zoom people.
Yes, they did.
They did.
Yeah.
They made very different choices. Just like Mary and Martha made different choices, so did the boys. I don't know. Have you ever wanted to run away?
It's been a time or two
Yeah.
as a kid. Yeah.
How about you?
So let's see. Can we?
Hold tight, Zoom.
Yeah. Zoom, you're doing great. I'm wondering if we can just go live on Facebook again.
Sure.
And just kind of
Recap.
the story, say what page it's on,
Yep.
and say
When did we lose it? Do we know?
Right at the very end of
towards the
where
end of the story.
Okay.
I feel like there's a lot of people on our Zoom feed that are just smiling right now. And
Oh,
that's a good
I'm
thing.
sure. Going,
Isn't this
Zoom.
great
Those Facebook
technology?
people.
Zoom's the
Yeah.
better platform. I always knew it. If you figure there's probably, thousands of people, thousands and maybe a couple million out there watching Facebook feeds right now from other churches, which is pretty outstanding. So as soon as we get the thumbs up, all right, we're about ready to go live on
2,
Facebook
1.
again.
Facebook dropped it again, and so we are trying once again to go live on Facebook. Zoom, you've been here the whole time, hanging steady. That's awesome. And so I think on Facebook with the last live, we missed the very end of the story. But so you want to just kind of recap the whole story for us?
Sure. So the younger brother ran away. He took all his portion of his father's money, and he spent it all, and did not plan for the future very well, and ended up living in a pigsty. And he realized that was a mistake. So he decided to go home. When the father saw him coming back, he was so excited that he threw his arms around him and welcomed him home and decided to throw a big party. Now, the older son, who had stayed back and did all the right things, was a little bit upset about this because he'd stayed home. He thought he should be rewarded with a party too, but he wasn't getting one. And so the father said, "My son, you have always been with me, but your brother has left and now came back." And that's the big point, is that the choice he made was to come back. And the older brother made a choice to stay home, and that was just fine. So that's the recap of the story. Thanks for hanging in there, Zoom. Facebook, welcome back. Pastor Nathan, you want to talk about the questions?
Yeah, exactly. So if you missed the previous video, what we talked about in worship today was the story of Mary and Martha and how they made different choices. Martha was busy cleaning, Mary was busy sitting and listening to Jesus. And these brothers made different choices as well. And so that's what we're kind of reflecting on here, is choices. And so we have some questions here that we're going to invite you to discuss after the video goes off here. And so we'll get those shared with you. Here's what they are, though. To think about, what were the choices each brother made in this story. Of course, they made some different choices, and you can find that story in the Bible, or a Spark Storybook Bible is on page 378, or any storybook Bible, you'll be able to find this story, the prodigal son. It's kind of a well-known one. And so you'll read the story, and what are the choices that each brother made? Then next, number 2, how do you think the father felt when his younger son left home? Yeah, not great, right?
Probably not.
And then finally, why do you think the older brother who chose to stay home was angry with his father for throwing a party for his brother? In this story, Jesus is teaching that even though the one brother chose to leave home and made his dad very sad, he was still loved so much that the party is welcome. He's welcomed home with a party. And so the father is happy because he loves both sons, right? That's essentially the big takeaway.
That's right.
Anything else about?
No, the only other thing to say is that Mary and Martha made choices, the brothers made choices, and I know from what I'm hearing from my friends that have kids at home and other friends that you kids are you're bored. You've got school, but that's, anyway. So I thought it would be fun to make a choices box. And then I sent along an email to your parents with some choices that I came up with. Now, your parents can decide which choices they want to have, or if they want to make their own, please make your own and create more. What you're going to want to do sometime is you're going to want to cut your choices. So you're just going to cut them out like that. And what you're going to end up with is an either or, okay? So this one, teddy bear hide and seek. Ask your parent to hide one or more of your stuffed animals, and then you go find them. Or you can choose to do this. Get out a set of blocks and see how high you can stack them. Have a contest and count them and do all that stuff. So
both good choices.
These pages are filled with good choices. So then after you do, I would pick the teddy bear activity because I think it's really fun. It's kind of like playing sardines with the kids, or all these other silly games that we play. And so I would choose that one, but there's still a good one there. So I would put this back in the choices box to play again, or pick the other one next time. So what I want you to do, and I asked you to do this already, is to find a container. What's a good container?
All of them. You can use a bag or Tupperware. If you have a pencil case, because we're not using those at school, you could use those for this. Or even your solo cup.
A cup, an orange solo cup.
I bet there might be some people who have an Amazon box at home.
I bet there's an Amazon box,
right.
Yes. You can wrap that and decorate it or whatever. I have this box that we used for Lyft, about a month and a half ago, and it got recycled here for this purpose. And so I wrote choices on it, okay? And then I've got some markers here, and I'm going to decorate it, and I want you to decorate yours too. I'm going to put flowers on mine for spring, because as you can see, I put spring flowers out here today because I am really excited for spring, and that marker does not work. So we're going to have an orange flower here.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? I'm an artist. I actually minored in art in college, but you'd never know it. So decorate your whole box, and you can spend as much time with that as you want. You can put stickers on it. You can paint it. Depends on what you have. If you have one of these, you could decorate on the inside and put a lid on it or not. Sometimes all you can find in your house is a gift bag. I could not find a smaller gift bag than this one because I can't go to the store and buy one. So lots of choices in here. And so you are going to take that and decorate it. you're going to cut out those choices and you're going to stick them in your box. And then with your families, you can choose one of those activities, make a choice. I'm going to do this one or this one, put it back in, and have some fun with that. And know that you can add to them, think of new things. You know what? You can even send us Facebook messages to tell us what you did with this and share some ideas with your friends. And I want you to know that you are precious children of God, and He is with us in this time, even when we can't gather together here, even though the 4 of us have been gathering. And we miss you, and we wish you were here, and we know you're going to be back hopefully very soon. We love you, and we can't wait to see you again. Anything else to add?
I think that's
I don't
great.
think so it's great. Have fun making your choice boxes, kids.
And we'll see you
See you
next week
soon.
after Palm Sunday. We'll do something really special next week. So see you next week.
Cool.
Bye, all.
Bye, all.